going on a journey which was very exploratory in the early point of when e-textiles or smart textiles were starting to emerge. So there was lots of amazing, really early work at that point. I didn't really know about it because it was 2006.
Welcome to Transcend Matter. This podcast aims to explore the fascinating interplay of materials that not only redefine aesthetics, but address pressing human and environmental challenges. Every episode is brought to you by me, Emma Wright, a material developer and researcher, to converse with material experts from either an academic, designer, or research background. We'll be diving into their practice, exploring cross-collaboration and their connection with materials. Welcome everyone to another episode of Transcend Matter. I hope you're all feeling good and ready to learn today and enjoyed the experience and journey so far. It's been fun creating these episodes, so I hope they have brought a lot of joy, entertainment and interest as they have for me. So today we have my old tutor from the Royal College of Art when I was there back in 2019 to 2021. Sara Robertson. She has been such a beacon in my life of inspiration and support. She probably doesn't even realize this until she'll hear this recording. But yes, she is a fantastic e-textiles developer, researcher, designer. She has as partner as well, a design partner called Sara, and they have a studio called Sara and Sara sort of Smart Textiles. But alongside this, she kind of also really opens up her opinions and also thoughts on the future of where the innovation in textiles in general, not just electronic textiles, can go, and how we need to breach the worlds of academic and design and really produce more genuine collaborative work to create these new innovations across all different products. And when I mean by true collaboration, I mean two partners coming together and their ideas, their values are on equal playing level and they're feeding into the same system, the same funnel, opposed to one party just using a skill set at a particular moment in time. So it's quite interesting to see the gaps of where academia design can really expand and flourish, and also what is also working right now. Everything takes baby steps. It takes a while to get to somewhere. So yes, that has been very insightful to hear her thoughts on that. She also talks about her vulnerable side in regards to having her own studio. And yes, she has a studio partner, but the studio is her main, or I believe to be her main income source as well. And not a lot of designers or practitioners talk about the stresses of having your own space, whether you're a freelance consultant, what have you. And yes, there's a lot of positivity that comes from that, a lot of freedom and flow that you can have from this. But there is also a lot of stresses that come alongside it too. So I found that very refreshing, and I really appreciate her sharing that with me, and I hope that brings some insights and calmness into others who may be in a similar space. So yeah, she would also love anyone to connect with her who is interested in electronic textiles or novel textile development. We both, alongside another partner, Lucy Hernandez, volunteer for a group called London e-textile Stitches, and that branches out outside of London across the UK and Europe. So please stay tuned on the Studio Osmo wavelength for more updates to help promote this electronic textiles community and support emerging designers, practitioners, artists in the world of electronic textiles, e-textiles. So yeah, enjoy everyone, and yeah, have fun.
I think it's important to have a good mic. I haven't got a mic today because I thought I could borrow one, but I didn't.
You sound great.
Well, my brother just didn't have one that I could plug into my laptop, so I was like, okay, I'll just go with the headphones.
Absolutely fine. You're great. You're amazing. So for everyone who's listening out there, this is Sara Robertson, who has a design agency, I would say, with e-textiles, electronic textiles. For anyone who doesn't know the phrase e-textiles, with her co-designer, founder, Sara. What is Sara's
Sara
second name,
Taylor.
actually, Sara? Sara.
Yeah.
Sarah Robertson and Sara Taylor. And you have an amazing practice, which I really admire. And actually, I met you through Royal College, one of my tutors way back when. I'm sure everyone will hear about the Royal College in other episodes to come on the soft systems course. And you were amazing. You were just really inspiring, and you allowed that really beautiful space to allow a very abstract way of thinking, multi-skilled thinking to kind of like flourish, as it were. But what I'm really interested though, Sarah, is to understand. I know you had a PhD before you came sort of taught at the Royal College, but I'm really interested to understand how you kind of got to that space, especially where you are now, because e-textiles, electronic textiles, has been around for quite a while. And it does require lots of different skill sets in that regard. So weaving, understanding of like hardware, understanding of programming. And you may not be the master of them all, or you may be the master of all, depending on the person. And those sort of hybrid designers, as I call them, are few and far between to some extent. So I just really love to hear like your journey of where you got to where you are. And then we kind of just, take it from there.
That's a long journey. Well, not too long maybe, but long-ish. But thank you for your nice words, and it was a pleasure, being part of your journey at the Royal College. I think answering your question about how I got to where I am, I don't really know. But
that's quite nice. I like that.
But it was a series of events that kind of happened quite naturally, and things that just happened throughout, I suppose, education really, or my education. So the PhD was definitely like fundamental in that, like ability to work with different disciplines and learn new skills that I just didn't have before doing that. So I started my PhD in 2006. I moved to Scotland, and I had funding to do it from the AHRC at the time. They used to fund individual doctoral scholarships. So as an individual, you could apply for PhD funding, which is very rare now, and it was a very amazing opportunity, because without the funding, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So I was awarded that funding, and it was to explore the application of smart materials to textiles, but from a design perspective. And I was really lucky at the time that I went to Heriot-Watt University in Scotland, and there was a colour chemistry department within the university, the School of Textiles and Design in the Scottish Borders. And so I worked with a colour chemist from the beginning of my PhD, and a designer who was Sara Taylor, who I now work with. So we stayed friends and formed a very strong bond, I think, through that experience of her being my mentor and supervisor, and me being someone that wanted to maybe achieve something slightly new with textile design at the time. It doesn't feel necessarily very new now, but at the time it was treading on ground that maybe hadn't been trodden on before. But
absolutely.
So I was looking at, I suppose I went there not quite knowing how it would work and what I would do, because it was research. But I knew that I wanted to explore chromic materials which change colour in reaction to external stimulus, whether that be heat or light or moisture. And I wanted to explore how they could be applied to textiles more effectively, and the types of colour changes you could achieve on a textile surface through their use. And that immediately started to come with challenges of, right, okay, so how might I control those changes? How might I explore those colour changes and show those colour changes to an outside audience? And that's really where the electronics side of things started for me. So didn't come through sort of wanting to go down an e-textile route. It came through wanting to look at how I could control colour change, or program colour change.
Yeah, I was going to say, okay, interesting. So before your PhD, what the background you had, was just purely textile design then? You had no like academic, scientific, engineering background at all? That's so
no engineering background, but I suppose my MA.
Yeah.
I also was very lucky. I got funding to do my MA part-time at Winchester School of Art. And I taught on the side as well to kind of make ends meet. And then I think I just then sort of started to get a feel for, okay, I needed to step into realms which I hadn't thought about before, like electronics, like engineering. And so I started some experiments there doing my MA. And then when I moved into my PhD, it didn't feel too alien, but it was still something that I didn't fully understand. But I'd already started to make circuits on my MA that would heat up. And then I just needed to take it further, really. So I needed to find some willing collaborators. And so that was always part of something I did, which was I would email people, or I would find people on the internet, and I would just send them an email or call them. And I still call people now.
Classic analog. Yeah. People forget that exists.
And I would ask if I could come and chat to them because I needed to understand something, or was this possible? Could we apply this to textiles? So yeah, I ended up going on a journey which was very exploratory in the early point of when e-textiles or smart textiles were starting to emerge. So there was lots of amazing, really early work at that point. I didn't really know about it because it was 2006 and it was really only just happening. Whereas Lee Buckley was developing the lily pad Arduino, but I didn't know that existed yet because it hadn't really been publicized. So there were things that were happening under the surface, but I didn't really know. Yeah.
So do you think it was like your perseverance as well, especially for your PhD, that really allowed you to have that amazing catalyst for you to kind of generate these ideas? Because 2006, I remember like this, you had the internet, you had things, but it was nowhere near the platforms we have now. No idea the accessibility and the information, especially in regards to social media. I think even Facebook existed then. Actually, I'm trying to think. Or did it? I can't quite remember. But I'm just wondering if it's like your perseverance. Okay, you knew something was out there, and it's just that constant drive of chatting and okay, who's next? Who can introduce me to who?
I think I was really, there was an element of chance and an element of luck, probably as well as perseverance. But I managed
timings.
I managed to meet some really willing people. Dr. John Fletcher, who was at Heriot-Watt University in electronics and computer science. And he was just so up for helping with the electronics side of things. And he got some of his students working on some of the stuff that I wanted to do. And then I actually met one of the students, then worked with me on the project. So we actually were wiring things together, cutting things together. You know, we were making circuits together. So that became a very sort of joined up way of, you know, actually making circuits for textile design. And, you know, they would help me with, okay, so then how do I program these things? So we would hack, it's probably not the best word, but we would hack existing technology or off the shelf technology DM open source kind of DMX boxes for lighting control, and I would use them to control heated circuits switching on and off in time in a sequence. So I learnt really simple. I mean, it was literally, you had to work within a range of 0 to 255, and you would program things to come on at different levels. And that would then create patterns that would heat up in a sequence, and I could control colour changes on a textile surface. So we would literally work.
That's amazing. I can see it happening in my head.
And so we would work with what was there and what was available. But now there's just so much more sophisticated stuff available and much more miniaturized.
That's really interesting. Yeah, sorry.
It's not necessarily more sophisticated potentially in the way people use it sometimes.
Yes, sometimes. That can really vary, I feel like, with electronic textiles or e-textiles. So do you think, because back then you only had like a limited array of kit, and so you had like limitations because everything had to be off the shelf and nothing was in a miniature PCB board, basically PCB. Do you think now, because we have accessibility to so much kit, tools, minds, and also we're constantly bombarded with what things should look aesthetically within certain design cultures or subcultures, do you think that actually takes away the idea of just almost like this flow space of making, where you're just making without really worrying about what it's going to look like? You've got a vision, you're kind of just working out how you make it, and then the end goal just naturally kind of forms, opposed to going, I need to make something look like this that works in interiors, and it's got to have these like really clean contours. And I don't know, there's something quite beautiful with limited tools.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think there was something about maybe potentially using your hands much more. We were hand cutting metal, thin metal, to then apply to textiles, and hand soldering and making everything bespoke and by hand. So it was very much a hands-on process, but in a way that kind of echoed what I was used to doing with textile design. So everything felt very handmade. It wasn't always beautiful, but it was handmade and I understood it. So by going through all of those steps and understanding how to design a circuit that would actually function, to actually craft the circuit, make it, and then find a way of applying it to textiles, and then finding a way of programming it, I knew every step. I'm not sure I could do that now, and that sounds bad, but with modern different forms of Arduino and Adafruit and those types of things, I can use them, but I don't always know which is the right one for me or the right components to put together. I almost need to go back to basics and understand why I need that piece and how it's going to function, and could I design it in a different way? Could I make one myself through using conductive materials? How do I kind of almost reverse it and make it differently, or make it fit what I want to do with it? I totally see the reason for them being there, because they make everything so much easier and available, but also, as you say, there's so much there. It's sometimes confusing to know what you need for an end use or for a project that you need to do. It's not straightforward, and it's not. I don't necessarily think there's like a rule book or recipes, but there are people out there that put amazing stuff online to help designers that want to move into that space. So, the internet is our friend in that sense. But I think, as always, actually doing it yourself and working through it, as long as you've got someone to use as a sounding board or someone to work with, then that's the best way to learn.
You've mentioned a lot about working with your hands. That's the best way that you reference, like you understand and you learn something. That in my head is very like traditional craft making, and a lot of people don't associate craft making with technology. I mean, I love like aesthetic, real juxtapose, like visuals and techniques and stuff. So do you feel craft making is really key within all of this, even just generally just learning new techniques, whether you're a knitter or a weaver trying to learn what you're doing, or even vice versa, like an electrical engineer trying to work out how to integrate it within a woven piece.
Yeah,
Do you think like the art of craft is like undervalued?
definitely. And I think craft is, underplayed a lot, and maybe underused. I mean, I don't think I'm an amazing craftswoman person.
I think you're great.
But I think that
you've done some pretty cool things.
I think that I have trained in a craft, and I also have developed new skills that allow me to make in certain ways. And I do think, it's so important, and that there is kind of levels of kind of e-textiles and smart textiles. There's like a much more scientific level where, they're working on energy harvesting materials, and they're kind of almost a layer above. But I feel like all of those projects should have designers working with them or craftspeople working with them that understand textiles and understand how to work with textiles, so that the kind of end use or the end point is just more considered and actually more usable and actually maybe more viable for people. And then maybe these two things need to come together much more, as craft and technology, craft and science. I know there's been lots of interventions, through academic projects about understanding maybe how similar these practices are or disciplines are. But in terms of actually raising the status of textile craft, textile design within those domains, it's still got a long way to go. There's so many projects that I see that I think, gosh, if only they had worked with someone in design or someone in craft or someone that really understood, as you were saying, about knit or weave, wouldn't that just elevate that to another level? And I think that's
really
missing, often, or it's not considered at the beginning of a application or a research bid. It's not seen as a vital aspect of a research project, but it really should be. It really should come into it. And in terms of impact, how do you get these things into the world without touching on design, without touching on craft?
Yeah.
How do they enter our lives if not through those means?
Exactly, and they're kind of missing that human element of what they're trying to do. And that sort of makes it almost too emotionally detached from where it could be. Why do you think they kind of miss those skill sets within the research proposals? Do you feel that some like areas of academia don't value design as equally, or it's almost just like someone isn't there to go, hey, well, if we just add this person in and see what happens? Or is it quite archaic in a way it's structured? I'm curious about that.
I suppose I don't fully understand all the ins and outs, but the legacy of the way funding research is funded. Sort of, you have research councils that fund certain disciplines, or they fund certain, so they would fund engineering and the sciences, or they fund arts and humanities. And there are now, they do work together. So you can have, they encourage interdisciplinary research and transdisciplinary research. But I think if you've worked in, I don't want to presume too much, but if you've worked in a certain discipline for a long time and you haven't necessarily worked with designers, then you might not think that that's a necessary requirement of a research project that's involved in developing quite kind of nitty-gritty technological research or fundamental technological research. And equally, if you're a designer and you're not exactly sure what research is happening in the sciences, you might not consider that there's actually some really valuable research happening in this area that you might want to bring into that. And there's not, I don't think there's kind of a magic wand that you can wave and make it right. But I just wonder whether there would be some mechanisms to enable more valuable crossover at an early stage of writing research bids and applications to get the right people together. And there are things like network grants and different mechanisms to make that happen. But yeah, it's just, I think it's all down to time, energy, knowing the right people at the right time, and knowing who you might need within this exciting research project that you've got an idea for.
Yeah, and also persistence. Like with your PhD, you wanted to learn something, so you had to connect and find those people within the fields that you were trying to learn those skill sets. So you mentioned like funding, they can kind of create like potential networking events, and that could also be led by like universities as well. So you got like education and trying to open up boundaries. I remember between like Imperial and RCA, everyone was like, we can talk to each other, but it was so hard as a student to like chat to people at Imperial, and I don't know how hard it was for Imperial to chat to RCA, but it was incredibly tricky. But I think it's having like those couple of characters to really like almost like ignite the almost like examples like yourself of like what like hybrid design could look like and trans design could look like, and then almost like inspire others. Because I feel we've developed schools and academia have been in such archaic roots, like science is over here, design is here, especially when I was at school. Like STEM or even STEAM, if you want to add the arts and media, didn't really exist. Like it really didn't exist. That's why I came back and done my MA, because I was like, aha, it exists now.
I found the course for me.
Yay! It's like I studied all science at A level, but no way is my brain I could handle a BSc. It was too like neurodivergent. It was everywhere and anywhere. So
I think you did the right thing at the right time for you, didn't you? You sort of knew that it was time to go back and find a different path. And I think that's the same, a very similar thing that happened to me, in which I kind of have had an academic career. I trained really to be an academic. That sounds strange, doesn't it? That was what I was doing. And then it's just very naturally happened that I realised over the years that I needed to stop and just give something else a go. And because I wanted to take a different path. And academia kind of almost stopped me being able to have any freedom. And that's not because it was a bad job. I absolutely loved my job and I got to work with amazing people and amazing students. But that was my sole focus, and I couldn't branch out and think more creatively and think about what I could achieve if I stepped out of that space. And it just happened that my life and everything that was happening, it kind of helped me make a decision. But you were really brave as well, weren't you? Because you stepped out of a career and went back to do an MA.
That brave is a good word. Mad, I don't know. Yeah, it was super stressful. But I had like this craving in me. I was just like, I can't, be on my deathbed and just think, oh, I just never tried it. And then I had that 2-year period to go, you know what, let's just try it. Let's be really poor for 2 years. Because that was the hardest thing, is like you get to your early 30s, or I was 30 when I started. And then you're used to having a salary, and then you don't have that. I freelanced a little bit during it, but people just, people forget that not everyone can just jump on an MA and it's all financially fine. There's a lot of people out there who are scared to do that. And actually, you can do it. It's just got a lot of moving parts and a lot of sacrifices you have to make. But it was definitely worth it. I mean, it was an amazing space for my brain to like expand and absorb information. But yeah, it was, I understand that. And I think because of that, it actually fueled me. And I don't know if you have found this as well, when you kind of take a bit of a risk for something, you're like, this has to work. I have to make this work. I can't just go in and just do a half-assed job. It kind of creates that anxious energy, that frenetic energy a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like I've got to make our business work. But it's not an advert for like earning more money or a quick fix. Like mine.
No, absolutely not. No.
I just really wanted to do something that I felt really passionate about. That, like what you said when you asked me to do this, what gets you up in the morning, and the kind of projects that we get to have ideas about and envision and then try to make happen are the things that get me up in the morning and get me excited. And that's what I wanted to do. And I don't know if it will all work yet, but yeah. But I have to give it a go, because I'm creeping towards 50, and I couldn't.
You look fab, by the way. You look great. I want to be like you at 50.
Brilliant. But yeah, I thought I'd better do it before it gets too late. And maybe there isn't a too late, but I felt like my time was ticking and I needed to give it a shot. Yeah. And I still do some stuff in academia. I'm still supervising 2 PhD students at the Royal College of Art. I get asked to do nice things in academia, which I can say yes or I can say no to. And I get to organise conferences and do things that I wouldn't have had time to do in my actual academic job. And so I can pick and choose and decide to do the things that I really want to do, which is really lucky position to be in. And I might go back to academia at some point maybe, but at the moment I'm very happy doing what I'm doing.
I think you can say it's luck, but you've also you've designed your world. So there is some luck to it, but I think ultimately you knew what you wanted to do and you didn't allow anything to stop you from doing it, from what you've said. What I'm also really interested in is multiple things that are in my head right now. One is going back to programming chromic dyes. I'm really I want to unpack that a little bit, because I can imagine some people out there going, what? And then 2, I really want to hear what you guys have recently up to in the Sara and Sara sort of design studio, and what are those really exciting projects? You can answer that in any order you wish.
Well, it's funny because my PhD came back into relevance, I'd kind of finished my PhD in 2011, and I was tired and just, I'd finished my PhD and I was like, yes, I've got my academic job, I'm fine. I didn't look at it again for quite a few years. And I suppose it's more recently that it's come back into my psyche, into our business, because a luxury sportswear brand in Italy picked up on it and wanted to understand how to use some of the materials that I'd worked with in my PhD. And
Oh, wow. So they found your original
yeah,
PhD work. Wow, they're a good research team. Are we allowed to say?
I
We
don't
have to say
know,
who
so
they
I don't know if I can. I think I could. I maybe
Okay,
can
let's not
find
then.
out, and then I
If
can
it's,
let you know, because we could make. I don't know if there's a way to mention it in another way in the caption.
I don't know. I know someone at a few people at Volleback found out about your studio through the collaboration with the company that you done. And they're like, have you heard these people? And I was like, oh my God, it's Sarah.
Well, that's really nice for us to hear. I hope, even in a positive,
Yeah, that's how they found
because
you.
it was really important, I suppose, for us as a really small micro company, design studio, that we, had some sort of something that has come from research that then was developed into a product. And so for me to see some of my research then end up as something that was sold in the world, and that was quite a challenging project because the chromic materials needed to be really stable, and they needed to be able to be applied to textiles on a much larger scale. So there was a lot of technical work involved, and that was something that, again, was a project that I absolutely loved and relished because it was totally what I knew. So I was able to use everything that I'd learned and understood about a very sort of unique liquid crystal thermochromic material and apply it to something that could be, made as a garment, which is great. So that's one of the things that we work on, and we still work with that sportswear brand. So we continue to work with them and on kind of novel coloration finishes, new approaches to color, new finishes, and they give us a lot of creative freedom to explore things in a way that we feel comfortable, and we can present those ideas to them, and they might take up some of them, and they might kind of go no to others. But that allows me to really pull on those research skills that I learnt and really loved, and dig into things more. So find out how we could do that, find out if it's possible. I think it's really similar to your brain. You will find a way of making it work, and that's the bit that I really enjoy, is trying to make something work. But that idea of programming chromic materials is still very much part of what we're doing at the moment. And even the electronics might come back out. So the kind of idea of programming color change over time is still something that is really important within mine and Sarah's work, and so comes through that idea of color change and light. So we program light that changes over time in a textile surface, and we can also program color to change over time in a textile surface. And some of our work brings those two things together, color change and light. And so the chromic materials actually change the quality of light as they change over time. So those are the types of things. So that's kind of layered approach to how we can create different qualities and different shifts in color and light on a textile surface. How can we kind of push the boundaries of that and what can we achieve if we approach the materials in a new way. So a lot of what we do is strip away what already exists. So if we're working with a chromic material now, we kind of look at how it's maybe always been used or how it's always been manufactured before. And then we want to maybe change it or take that existing way of it being manufactured away and using it as a much more raw material or using it in a totally different way. And yeah, those are the types of things that we kind of work on, is rethinking the materiality of something, rethinking how we could start from scratch with it, really. How could we make it more sustainable? How can we take out the toxic materials? How can we change the way it's used? Can we use it with biomaterials? Can we, what can we do? What can we push? What can we try? So a lot of things we're doing at the moment are really like almost a bit like kitchen
rapid prototyping. Yes, best type of prototyping. Just really, really quick. You've got an idea. Let's just see if it works on a small scale. And if there's something there, then you put the time into it. And that allows your brain to just work on multiple things and can very rapid.
And so we've got some lovely sort of beginnings of projects at the moment that build on, research that I'd almost put to bed. That sounds strange, but I'd not valued it maybe in a way that I actually had all that knowledge there, and it could be used again. It could be used in a different way. So I think going back and delving back into that was a really nice process for me, almost like a bit of a healing process, and understanding that did have some value in it. And then what else could we do with that? And then Sara Taylor obviously has got this incredible knowledge of woven fibre optics, woven light. And so the knowledge that we bring together is through print and through weave. So we have these kind of two disciplines that come together and really kind of we bounce off each other in terms of thinking about print and structure, or surface and structure, which is really nice.
Very collaborative, very elasticated relationship, which is really nice. I find it's quite hard to find, quote, like a true collaboration where you are literally just feeding from each other's brains in a very organic way, opposed to someone just taking something and then like repurposing it to them, for something else.
Really are. I don't really know how we do it, but from very, very early on, when I first applied for a PhD at Heriot-Watt, I'd been to see, in fact, it was the final show at the RCA, and they still had design interactions there at the time. And I'd been to see it, and I'd seen Matthew Faller's work he'd printed graphite. They were graphite kind of printed circuits on paper, and you could play them essentially. And I just thought, oh my God, this is amazing. I want to do something like that. I didn't know what, but something like that. I sort of then knew that I could work with circuitry in a different way. And I wrote that in my application about his work. And then Sara called me and said, oh, I saw that as well, and thought really similar things. And so we really, at that first exchange, we had sort of a similar way of thinking, although we're different, but we also saw things from a similar,
You're on the same wavelength.
That's the word. Yeah. I don't know if that answered your question.
Really
sorry. I just went off on a...
Doesn't matter. No, but I like that. I don't really like sort of binary answers. I just like see what happens. So no, completely. I think Going back, like the collaboration between you and Sarah is very organic, and like you're saying, on the same wavelength. Do you feel, touching back on what we discussed earlier about how there needs to be your integration between, I'm just going to call it academia as a whole and like design. Do you feel like commercial, for instance, the company you have worked with and are working with now, that integration of a commercial head and space also kind of is also equally as needed in a collaborative role?
Yeah.
It depends, I guess, on what the final product is, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I think Sarah and I maybe have different skills. I hope she wouldn't mind me saying this. I always think Sarah is much more academic than I am. And she's much wiser, intelligent, and all of the things that, you need in academia. Whereas I almost want to do it now. Like, I want to make it happen. I need to get that. And so I have a fast, almost like a speedier way of working. And I will, the pace sometimes, I think for me in academia was hard. So branching out and having a more commercial timeline and having to meet faster deadlines, having to get things done really quickly sometimes, even though they're research projects, does suit me. And I like having multiple things going on. And I think Sarah is much more our level person that has like the overarching vision of everything we do. And I might be firing off emails and calling people and sourcing materials and joining all the things together. But it also needs that balanced person that can see everything in a more holistic way. That sometimes, I think we balance each other out. But the commercial side of things is really new to me. So actually making money from what you do is something that I am not familiar with because I've never really done it. But I'm not making money from a product necessarily at the moment. I make money from the research skills that I developed through my academic training, and also the craft and textile design skills that I developed. So essentially I'm selling my time and knowledge. Yeah.
Consulting. Yeah. How do you feel about that?
I don't know. No. I mean, I like it because it's actually enabled us to do things that we never would have been able to do otherwise. And in a time frame.
Money's an important thing. People sometimes don't think it is, like, oh, no one needs money. No. And I'm like, man, if you have a beautiful bottomless, pot,
I mean,
wild.
We definitely don't have a bottomless pot yet. But we're wanting to build something that is bigger than us just consulting. So ideally, we would like to be leading and running our own research projects that result in either a change in behaviour, a change in material, a change in a system. But to do that, we almost need to have kind of these other projects where we can almost have like help us to establish ourselves and to help us to actually see the value in what we do and how we can maximize those skills for our own projects as well. So at the moment, it feels like a really big learning curve in terms of, okay, who are we? What do we do? What are we selling? And just understanding us as Sarah and Sarah, really this first year for me being in the business full time is really about that. And if we can start to get some cash flow and, some projects under our belts that feel like we're going in the right direction, then we'll feel like we've achieved, even if we don't make huge amount, but that's not necessarily the most important thing. But we do need to be able to make a living, and ultimately it would be good if we could both be paid, kind of a living wage from what we do, and that's our goal at the moment, is to get to that point.
I think that's a really healthy goal. I think people forget that, we do live in like a capitalist system, and we do have to pay out money for things, whether it's a mortgage or childcare or something. And there's some studios I see out there, and I'm like, how are you guys? What's your business model? Like, how are you guys making money? And it's just secret, like old money funding something, which is ultimately fine, but it's really important, I think, to show how vulnerable some studios are, and like humanize them, and that, it is really, really tough.
And I think you're always, for me, we do everything in our business. So we do the finances, we do the project management, we do, you do every single element. You do the design work, you do the testing, you do all of it. And so ultimately, there are some bits of it, like actually getting people on board to want, how do you tell people what you do, for them to then come to you, those bits are really tough. Once you've got a project, yes, I can see it through and I can do it, but how do you then get new work? Those are the bits, that we're not expert at. We've never done that before. We're really good at applying for funding and getting funding. And we're just going for some more funding at the moment. But that takes a lot of our time and energy, and, it doesn't pay us necessarily. It's not income coming in, but it allows something to happen potentially if it's successful. So all those little things that we do are hopefully will add up now and start to make a difference.
How would you describe your studio right now then? I feel like I didn't describe it in full sort of potential.
We are 2 women. We work, our business is based in Scotland, and so it's all, I suppose it evolved in Scotland and it's grown in Scotland, but we've got a tiny studio in Sarah's garden in the Scottish borders, which has got a green roof, and has all of our kind of archive of materials and textiles. And so we're just starting to really get a sense of who we are and where we work and how we can build what we do, I suppose, and have an actual working environment that feels right. Because since COVID, we have worked, so much online, only just getting back to doing much more in person. But our ability to be online also makes our business work, because we're working with people in Europe, and mainly work with people in Europe. So we are needing to be online. We're not traveling to Europe very often.
And it's good to
exactly.
save those, right? People used to travel all the time for stupid meetings, and it's not stupid meetings. I shouldn't say that. Meetings. They have to fly somewhere for like a 2-hour meeting and fly back. I know people who used to do that, and I was like, that's
and there's
insane.
no need, absolutely no need to do that. And we've never met some of our clients in real life, but we've built up a relationship with them online. And so that's an interesting new work environment, that you've never actually met the people that you work with in person, in reality. But it's possible now. So, we have this ability to work online, work in person. Sarah and I meet every week for a day. We spend a day together online, and then we we'll come together in person when we really need to. And we work on different things. So she might work on a certain set of experiments, and I might work on a certain set of experiments, and then we bring those results together. So we split, our workload, and it kind of evolves quite naturally sometimes. But we manage to, the main work we do is for other people at the moment. We'd like to shift that ultimately and have a balance between us doing our own projects and leading those and working for other people. And so it's just finding that mechanism, and it truly is about cash flow for us and the ability to kind of fund those projects that we would ultimately like to do.
I find this all really inspiring. It's it's got my brain ticking over in a certain way. So even though there's obviously trials along the way, ultimately you sound really sort of joyous in what you do, and I think that's a really lovely thing. Yeah. So you mentioned before you want to do like future thinking in regards to behavioral changes and system changes. How do you think collaboration could like help with that? And collaboration being like across maybe more corporate companies or more research-led companies. For me, I've always loved the collaboration between technology and materials, but opposed to moving away from these hard surfaces and making a bit more of like an ambient tech within the home. I don't know if there's anything in your brain right now that's kind of like, what if sort of thing.
It might.
Without giving too much away, obviously you can I can't talk to you about that.
It's not really technology focused necessarily, but because we've had such a long relationship with MYB Textiles, the lace manufacturer in Scotland that we've worked with since 2016, we still deal with them quite often on various things. So we might, we have to cost up certain projects, or we're working with them. So we've worked with them for a long time. We don't work with them quite as much as we used to, but we're just working on a proposal now, which is about transforming their waste streams, and a shift in really how their waste is valued, because it currently goes to landfill. So we're looking at transforming that waste stream through design, so raising the value of it. So we're just putting a collaborative project together with a small flock studio in the Netherlands, a flocking textile company, and a partnership.
Should we explain flocking? Because some people might not know what flocking
is essentially a printing process where you print a glue onto a textile, and then you use electrostatic energy to sprinkle powder onto the textile, which then stands up in a velvety texture. And it's been used for a very long time, and on wallpapers and on damask kind of textiles. And so the idea...
That was a very good description. I can tell you why it's in academia.
Well, also because I've just been thinking about it a lot. We're working on, if successful, a project that would explore natural flock fibres opposed to synthetic fibres, which are more common, and a waste stream that can be then used for design. So those are the sorts of things that we often think, right, okay, we want to do that, and then we'll try and make it happen. Technology-wise, little things sort of come into my periphery, and one of them was from the Textile Intersections conference in London.
We should discuss more about that as well.
That was in September this year, and I was one of the co-organisers, and it was one of the people that exhibited actually in the exhibition, Sofia Garidi. She's studying at Aalto University in Finland, and she's looking at cellulose material, but cellulose materials that are biodegradable or dissolvable, that can be used for electronics and circuitry and sensors, and also carriers of light. So she worked with, and what's really interesting about Aalto is the way that they do seem to have this integrated relationship between the sciences, biochemistry and design.
Yeah, definitely. They've nailed it.
Yeah, and they seem to be producing such interesting projects which really point towards a future that hopefully starts to feel more possible, where they're actually developing cellulose optical fibers. So essentially, they don't have to be carrying light, but they can be carrying data. We rely on that, fiber optics for our transmission of data. So yeah, I think they're just onto some really interesting areas, and ultimately we would love to do something in that area where we're exploring, fully bio electronics, adaptive surfaces.
Yeah. This makes me very excited.
And obviously that touches on what you were doing within your business and your practice within the RCA.
Yeah.
But that's, where I see things going for us. And ultimately, we want to not use plastic within our work. We want to be as careful as possible with the materials that we use. And we don't fully understand all of the material possibilities yet, or even if they're more sustainable. But there's so much more out there now to give you the sources of information and the kind of aspects of, okay, this might be possible, the kind of hope to move into something new. But yeah, that was my inspiring moment, was some of the work that was coming from Aalto.
Yeah, they have a really interesting, they've done a really amazing body of work just on cellulose a few years ago, and it was spread over X amount of years. I can't quite remember the length. And they use cellulose in lots of different products, like from paper to like more conductive sensors, what I was looking at in regards to like graphene and carbon and integrating between the cellulose. And yeah, just lots of a plethora of craft meets design meets chemistry, biochemistry. That was a really amazing paper. So I'm really excited to see where the university goes. And also it's quite an inspiring platform that I feel other places should be inspired from, and take learnings from. Definitely.
I wonder whether they've got something quite unique there. Just because of the kind of that, Finland's known for wood. It's so cellulose focused. They've got something very unique in terms of kind of pushing those ideas around innovation with those materials. But that's really interesting in a way as well, because they're using a resource that is true to the place. And I think if we could all start to think more like that about the place we're in, the materials that are available to us, and understanding where things do come from. I think, I've been very guilty of, when I started my career in textile design, I just didn't understand about sustainability at the time. It wasn't necessarily something we were even exposed to in our education. And it's only really, in the last 15 years that it has come much more into design education. I think pioneers were obviously doing it before then, but it's still something that needs much more emphasis in everything, that we do. And
especially in electronics, and looking into these sort of hybrid textiles where you've integrated electronics. I know there's a couple of researchers over the last few years have looked at like disassembly and bio alternatives as well and stuff like that. So we are naturally moving down that sort of merging of those two worlds. We do need to be mindful of that designing for its death, or how you're gonna, what's its next afterlife going to be.
Yeah.
Very, very spiritual to say that.
And
but
what's our
yes.
next afterlife going to be?
Yeah. I love it. I love how you can just like reincarnate yourself to whatever you want to be. It's I think that's actually really exciting to do. I know some people are afraid of change, but I think change is can be really exciting if you kind of.
That'd be really nice to work with you in the future.
Oh,
and I hope we do get that chance. I'm just waiting for the right.
Oh, we will. It's not no. It's we will. There's an absolute. I have absolute faith in that. Definitely. Made it possible just to quickly touch on the textile intersections, because I think that was really, really important. I was like, really amazing. Thank you for inviting me in September for a series of talks. Even though I just went for one day, but it was over 3 or 4 days.
4 days. Which was
4 days. Which is crazy. That's a lot of work.
Challenging, I suppose, but a good thing, because through the conference we were able to put on a doctoral conference, which was totally free for PhD students to attend. So the first day was them being able to present their research to, a group of other students that came together on that day from across the world and share their research and where it was at, but get really valuable feedback at the stage they were in their PhDs, but feel safe in a safe space where they could share it amongst others that were going through, a similar process. Which I think was a great thing to be able to do. And then the other 3 days were the kind of main conference, and there were 6 tracks, which was why it had to be on across the 3 days. So we had, I don't know if I'll be able to remember them all: textiles and architecture, textiles and sport, bio and sustainable textiles, interactive and performative textiles, and critical textiles. So there was a really lovely mix of people there talking about their research, and it was very international. So we did have people from all over the world, which was amazing. And it was, it's hard work putting on an academic conference, but it was a really valuable place to know what's happening, kind of at that really I would call it cutting edge, because it's research that's never been shared before at conferences like that. It's work that's never been necessarily seen before in the exhibition. So not only were there, research papers being presented, there was an exhibition that sat alongside the conference, and actually we had more submissions for the exhibition this year than we had for presenting oral papers, which is interesting for us, and also really nice to celebrate that people that are working in those interdisciplinary realms from a design or craft perspective are making objects, they're making samples, they're making prototypes, they're creating textile artifacts. And those are the most valuable outputs of the research in a way. They're the physical manifestation of that knowledge. And I think that's really amazing to see and to celebrate. And, we could do more of that. There'll be another conference in 2025.
Good. I was going to say it's biannual. Really good. Nice.
There's a call to host the next conference. So any academic institution internationally could potentially host it if they wanted to. And I think the deadline for, saying that you'd like to host it is early February.
Fab. So hopefully someone will
hear this. You never know.
through this podcast. This is you never know. This is why we do these things, to kind of just leak information into the ether, and hopefully it'll stick somewhere. Yeah. But I remember you saying, like, you previously you hadn't invited anyone from what am I, commercial, like the world of reality?
It's not.
And it's interesting for me to go in and like is to start seeing all these little things and going, if you had like 500,000, if you had like 10 grand, if you had this is how you could optimize it. You do a few characteristic tweaks on it, and then you've got something that could maybe be replicated in 100 units, 50 units, and then your offset is X, Y, and Z. And yeah, it was really interesting.
I think I need to spend more time with you and understand everything you just said. No, not right now. But, I think that was something that's really interesting, is that you came from, working with a fashion brand in London.
Yeah, let's say that.
I don't necessarily think it's overly common that industry would come to that type of conference, and I think it really would be amazing if we could encourage that more. And this particular conference is really special because it's so academic orientated in a way, but that means that you're seeing the kind of the newest, the most interdisciplinary, the most interesting, the most unique things that haven't necessarily been shared. And it's not necessarily common that the two worlds meet. And it was interesting for me to do it because I wasn't working in academia anymore when I was actually in the kind of full swing of organising the conference. So, I was doing it from a business, as a business, not being paid, but doing it because I needed to see it through and I wanted to do it. But yeah, I just think it's really interesting, and I think it's something that maybe could shift in academic conferences, is that they are a space where that, all the stakeholders almost can come together in order to make these really valuable and more viable events.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's just opening up that and almost humanizing information as much as you can for designers to go and listen to some like researchers, because traditionally some designers might not think they understand all the technicalities, but actually it's the way you communicate. You can distill something, you can make that communication a lot more easier. So I think it's saying to corporate companies, commercial companies, that there is opportunity within this. We want your brains, and then vice versa. It's not just a shut off system. Yeah, definitely. I know you guys didn't do it like that, FYI. No, I don't really know. But it's like promoting the open door communication to everyone. I really loved it, and it was a really great space you had this year. Yeah. So hopefully you can find.
I hope it will find a life. Somewhere else. And,
absolutely. I believe in it. So I feel like just to take away something from this whole chat, I feel like perseverance is quite a key thing. So when you're doing your PhD, you're just like, okay, I want to do this. I need to contact someone. I think that's just really important. And for anyone, whether it's designer trying to go into science or technology, engineering, academia, or reverse, and academia trying to tap into design. Because I remember actually I think it might have been Elif. She was just like, I don't understand designers. How do your brains work? It looks insane. I have the concepts of the abstract way of thinking. How do you do it? And we were like, oh, it just happens. I mean, there is sometimes like a system to the madness, but is that perseverance of reaching out and tapping into people and having those conversations. I think we can kind of still, even now, get really stuck in our little worlds. Real conversations are still really special. We know it, but I don't think.
No, I think perseverance is a good word, and I've always followed my heart over my head.
Yeah, lovely, nice.
If my heart's not happy, then my head's not happy, and I need my head. I need my head to function. So I do go with my gut instinct, and I know when I've taken a wrong turn quite quickly. So I think it's having faith in yourself as well, like trusting your instinct, trusting that you might feel like you're taking a risk, but those risks will probably pay off, and they will come back and reward you in some way. I don't know how, but that they do tend to, and perseverance maybe is the thing.
That's such a lovely summary. Yeah. Keep going. You've got this. Oh, that was wonderful. It's been such a lovely conversation.
Thanks so much.
Transcend Matter is a series-based podcast with monthly bonus episodes. We would love you to join our material community, so please do follow us. This will really help spread all the information we have here to a wider audience. We hope you have been inspired and will join us on the next show. This podcast was brought to you by Studio Osmo, bringing together a collection of minds and skills to accelerate future innovation within materials.